Whether you've been married for 2 days or 20 years, there is always something for you to learn about your husband, about marriage, about yourself as a wife, so you can become a better wife. But does it have to be hard? Does it have to be overwhelming? No. But before I get into all that, let me welcome you back to my channel. My name is Ayanna, and this is Beyond Committed, where we talk about everything from life, faith, family, marriage, motherhood, and everything in between, and we take them beyond. If this is your first time here, welcome, and I'm so glad you stopped by. And to make sure you're not a stranger, make sure you press that subscribe button below and then turn on your notifications so you don't miss a video. All right, now let's dive right in. Now, I don't know about you, but this whole wife life and marriage thing seemed a whole lot easier before I actually got married. I mean, no, I know that marriage is a blessing and it is a beautiful thing, and I am grateful for my husband and the years in which we have been married. But we all know that marriage is not easy and it takes work. It takes us being intentional daily. And then when you throw in careers and kids and life, I mean, it's like, okay, how am I supposed to do this and do this well? How am I supposed to be intentional about growing as a wife? And I'm just trying to get through today and whatever it is that comes my way. But I want to encourage you, as I have to encourage myself, is that it's not always about making leaps and bounds in marriage. It's not always about, okay, overcoming this big obstacle, which you will. Because through different seasons of life, there will be some big obstacles you come through. There will be some things that you grow in, some ways you grow as a wife that is like, man, that was amazing. But in the reality of everyday life, most of the time, it's just taking one step at a time. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with just taking small steps? What's wrong with just being intentional about being a wife every day and being intentional about being a better wife every day? Because at the end of the day, my goal, and I want to encourage you as well, is just to be a better wife than you were yesterday in whatever way that looks like. So I want to share with you 5 simple ways for us all to become better wives, things that we can do every day that we are intentional about growing as a wife, but we're intentional about nurturing and loving our husbands well. One simple thing that you can do today to become a better wife is to stop the comparison game. Just let it go. Realizing that God made both you and your husband and your marriage uniquely beautiful. It is like nothing else. You are like no one else. So it's so important that you are intentional about looking at it that way and not comparing yourself or your marriage or your husband to somebody else. And I know this is so easy in the midst of social media. It is so easy to look at someone else's, Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or YouTube channel and feel like, they are just doing everything right and I'm not. And I need to either be more like them or I should just, what's the point? Because I can't be like that or whatever it is. It's so important that as wives, we are mindful and remembering that God created us uniquely, and we have to stop comparing ourselves to other wives, because in order for you to be your best you and you to be the best wife God created you to be, you have to walk that out uniquely as He created you. Not how I do, not how someone else does, not how your friend does, how your mama did, all of those things. It's so important that we are mindful that comparison definitely steals your joy, both as you as an individual, but it can steal the joy within your marriage because you're so busy caught up to looking to see what somebody else is doing or not doing and how you measure up, that you lose sight, you lose the joy, you lose the happiness that is within your own marriage. If you just take a pause, stop looking at everybody else's and realize that God did something really special with you and your husband. So embrace that and realize that in order to be a better wife, you have to make sure you're intentional about just focused on being a better you. And another way to be more intentional about being a better wife is to study your husband. Because no matter how long you've known him, no matter how many years before you got married and how many years it's been since you got married, there is something always new to learn about your husband. And he changes just like you do. You're not the same woman he married. You're not the same woman he dated. In some good ways, sometimes in some not so good ways, but it takes time to just work on those. It takes time to just study each other to make sure you're intentional about, okay, how do I be a better wife to the husband that I have? And that also is incorporated with the comparison thing, because you are married to this one man. You need to be the best wife and you want to become a better wife for him. not for somebody else's marriage, somebody else's situation. So it's so important that in order to do that, in order to be the best wife you can for the husband that you have, is to make sure you're studying and know your husband well. And I know one book that my husband and I love, and I recommend it to everybody, and it's something that you actually can reread over the years, is The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It is an awesome way for you to learn more about your husband, and it's an awesome tool for you to study your husband and to study him well. And a third way for you to be more intentional about becoming a better wife is to talk to your husband. I mean, who better to ask how you can be a better wife than the man you're married to? I mean, he can give you insight about him, so it helps you to study him better. He can give you insight about your marriage, things that are working or things that may not be working. And he can give insight to you about being a better wife to him, because our husband's needs often change as well. Something that may have been working for him before may not work for him now. So it can be something as simple as, hey babe, how am I doing as a wife? That is a very open-ended question. He may push back at first, like, you're doing great, and just, I don't want to cause no friction. My husband and I do that to each other. We ask those questions, like we do check-ins every so often. Every few weeks, it actually pops up on his calendar. We do a check-in like, hey, how am I doing as a husband? And then I'll ask him, how am I doing as a wife? Because we have to be intentional about loving our husbands well, but we have to do that in a way that is intentional for them, not in a way that we think works for everybody. Because no matter how much tips, tricks, and advice you get from other people, which may be well intended, which may be good advice, it may not work for your husband or your marriage. So it's so important that you are keeping the lines of communication open within your marriage. And a great way for you to not just keep the communication lines open, but for you to become a better wife for your husband, is to have those conversations. Ask him how things going. Ask him, okay, is there anything that I could be doing better? Is there anything that you would like for me to do for you that I'm not, or that I used to do? And these can be something simple. It's like everyday things. Like, I do check-ins with my husband throughout the day. On certain days, I can't say that I do it every day, but I try to be intentional about doing it every day. But life really happens, and that's the reality of life and wife life. But I'll be like, hey babe, okay, how's your day? How's your day? Or like, what's your schedule for today? And he kind of gives me the rundown or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, is there anything I can do for you today? And then he'll pause. Sometimes he gives me something like, yeah, you can get me this, or if you can do this, or you can check on this or whatever. And sometimes he's like, no, I'm good. But it gives me an opportunity to see, okay, kind of check in to see what's going on for him, what's going on in his world outside of like our home and our marriage, and a way for me to love him well, and a way for me to be a better wife, because I am being intentional about keeping our communication lines open, but I'm also being intentional about getting and filling whatever need he has that may have not been spoken because I just didn't ask. And another way for you to become more intentional about becoming a better wife is to surround yourself with other loving wives who also want to become better wives. Because as much as we are in this together, as much as, two become one, and it's your marriage and it is uniquely beautiful and it is like no one else's, but you still need to surround yourself by other people, because just like it takes a village to raise a child, I think it takes a village to have a healthy and strong marriage. So you need other wives, other couples around you that are also intentional about loving each other well, are also intentional about growing together, also intentional about doing things together that are fun, that are exciting, that are ways for you to learn each other better, and also be able to pray for you, be able to, walk with you through some different things, because there are going to be some tough times in marriage. There are going to be some seasons where you're like, okay, this wife life is, this is way more than I signed up for. And that's why you need that village. That's why you need those other wives around you that can love you, that can encourage you, that can cheer you on, and that can walk with you, realizing that there is so much that you learn directly from your husband, but there's also so much you learn within community, within other people that are also God honoring and God-centered within their marriage, that they can give you different tips, tricks, and tools to help you go through and grow through different seasons, especially when you are doing life together, because you all experience things at different times, and sometimes you don't experience all the same things. So it's so important that when you're in community, when you are surrounded by other loving wives and other couples that are committed to the same things that you are committed to within growing and nurturing your marriages, that you are doing it together so that you can help each other along the way when the bumps in the road come, because they do. Nothing about life or marriage is always smooth sailing. So it's so important that we are intentional about not just being committed to our union and being committed to the uniquely beautiful marriage that we have, but we're also committed and intentional about having a strong village around us, because trust me, it's going to take a village to get through some of those tough times. And the fifth way for you to be more intentional about becoming a better wife, although it's listed last, it should be listed first, is prayer. I mean, I know your husband is a great source for how to love him well, how to become a better wife, how to strengthen your marriage. But the ultimate source is God. God is at the center and should be at the center of everything you do, should be at the center of both your life and your marriage. So it's so important that if you are seeking to be a better wife, if you are seeking to do more as a woman, as a wife within your marriage, that you're seeking God to guide you in that. You have to be intentional about that, because it's so important that in the midst of trying to do everything, in the midst of getting all the tips, in the midst of talking to your husband, in the midst of studying him, in the midst of just kind of living life together, in the midst of not focusing on everybody else and just focus on you, you're realizing that at the end of the day, it still has to be centered on God. So we have to make sure that you're intentional about praying to God, intentional about praying not just as a wife by yourself, but also with your husband, praying together. How can you improve your marriage? How can you be better together? Because in life, you're going to go through some tough things. You're going to go through some ups and downs. There are going to be some days you're like, I am rocking this wife life. And there are going to be some days you'll be like, whoo. Now, I don't want to repeat that one again, but regardless of what day you're in or what season you're in, you have to make sure you are intentional about centering everything on God, and you are intentional about praying, not just yourself, but also with your husband, because you'd be amazed how much you gain, how closer together you feel, and how much of a better wife you become by centering yourself on God and praying together. All right, that's it for today. And I want to know, what's one thing that you plan on doing to become more intentional about becoming a better wife? Let me know in the comment box below. And if you want to take your wife's life up to the next level, make sure you check out my signature offer in the comment box below, because I am here not to just help you become a beyond wife, but I'm here to help you become beyond you.